This is the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board meeting with the three candidates who are running for mayor of Oviedo. We appreciate you all being here. The candidates are Abraham Lopez, Kevin Hypes, and Megan Sladek, and I hope I said everybody's name correctly. So we'll spend about 45 minutes talking, and I'd like each of you to just take a minute to introduce yourselves and say whatever it is you'd like to say by way of introduction. Why don't we start with Ms. Sladek?
My name is Megan Sladek. I am the incumbent mayor, a native of Oviedo. I wanted nothing more than to leave this little po-diddle-dunk town when I graduated from high school. So I did, in fact, for about 8 years. Went to school at Notre Dame, ended up working in Boston for a season, studied in Asia, went to law school at University of Florida. And no sooner had I left than I realized Oviedo is the greatest place ever, and I wanted to come back. So after law school, I did come back to Oviedo and have been here ever since and plan to be here for the rest of my life.
Okay, that was short and succinct. Thank you. Mr. Lopez, how about you?
Well, first off, thank you so much for this opportunity and for casting a spotlight on the city of Oviedo. Truth be told, I don't think we have enough spotlight and attention to the city of Oviedo and the important issues that we face here. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Mayor Sladek and Kevin for participating on this forum as well. Look, my name's Abe Lopez. I didn't have the privilege of being born and raised in the city of Oviedo, but like so many Ovidian families, I too migrated from up north and came to the city of Oviedo because it's an amazing place to raise a family. When I fled New Jersey, I was looking for a community that shared my values of hard work, a place that I can raise a family, a place that embraced faith, family, and American values. And I find that place in the city of Oviedo. And so shortly after moving here, I met the mayor, and I think as kindred spirits, right, we kind of connected. She's a reformer, she's reform-minded. She's got tons of energy and passion, quite a few ideas, some that I agree with, some that I don't. She asked me to run for city council because of my experience being a deputy chief of staff to a lieutenant governor, serving as a director of Hispanic and faith-based affairs, overseeing millions of dollars in states and federal dollars, empowering communities at risk and at need, having served as a deputy mayor and a city council. And after attending numerous city council meetings, I decided that I thought it would be in the best interest of the city of Oviedo for me to run for mayor instead of running for council under the mayor. So I'm honored to be a candidate. I'm honored to participate in this forum, and I look forward to discussing and taking a deep dive into the issues of Oviedo.
Okay, thank you. How long have you lived in Oviedo?
I've lived in Oviedo for over 3.5 years now.
Okay. Mr. Hypes?
Kevin Hypes. I'm a businessman and entrepreneur. I've got married to my wife, Elise, for 34 years, 3 wonderful kids, Rebecca, Savannah, Alexander. Alexander likes to participate in the campaign. My 2 girls want nothing to do with it. And so I said, okay, you don't have to do an interview on tape or anything. Originally from Long Island, New York, born in Queens, street kid from Queens, I guess. Down here 30 years, 30 years in the county, 17 years in Sanford. In Sanford, I was a commissioner back in 2003, and I also was on the Planning and Zoning Board. I was chairman. I did that for 9 years, moved to Oviedo. Actually, moved to Geneva for 5 years after Sanford, and then to Oviedo for the last 8 years. So 13 years in the immediate area. I'm a real estate, I guess I'll call myself a real estate professional. And I have a lot of ideas, a lot of energy. I think I have a lot to offer. And I think with my background, I'm the best qualified candidate. So I'm happy to be here today.
Okay. Are you still the general manager of the Oviedo Mall?
I'm actually the development director. I'm handling the redevelopment of the mall, the conversion of the mall from a fully retail center to a mixed use development, which these days with Amazon really has to be done with malls these days.
Thanks everybody for those introductions. I wanted to ask you first if you could maybe identify 1 or 2 areas of policy or philosophy where you believe you apart from the other candidates in this race. Mr. Hypes, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I guess What I'd say was my experience, having been in development and having a real estate background, although many think that that's not an advantage. When I served in Sanford, the commission up there felt it was to their advantage to have a development-minded person sitting on the board, sitting across the table to level the playing field with developers. I know how they think. I know how they work. They're not bad people, but they do usually get what they want. Development right now is a very big issue in Oviedo. We've grown a lot, and we need to kind of channel that growth into the more urban core area. And we need to make sure that the developers who do come to the table are doing the right thing and that they pay their way. It's a wonderful city to live in, so we should give away nothing, and we should get first-class developments. So I would say it's my background that makes me a little bit different than the other two.
Well, can you think of a specific policy instance where you differ from your opponents?
I believe that the growth should be at the mall. The mall has 90 acres. It's paved over with 2 empty department stores. I believe that it should be all of the residential should have been put there before it was on the park, which created a lot of traffic. So that's one difference. I think Megan actually agrees with me on that point. But in the past, the city council and the city manager and them, they did not agree with that. They put all of the growth at the on the park area, which I thought was a mistake. It's a beautiful place, and I think now that it's there, we have to continue to develop it. But I think we should put that on hold and move forward, pushing the development towards the mall, more of an urban core commercial center.
Well, just one other quick follow-up, though. Does your position as a development director at the Oviedo Mall create a conflict of interest for you if you're going to be making policy decisions that would affect that development?
That's a good point, and that's what folks usually bring up. So to handle that, first of all, I'm a resident first, and I want what's best for the community. And bringing density to the mall, especially apartments that don't create traffic and create internal flow, makes a lot of sense and is very consistent with the thinking of the people. When I proposed apartments there 4 years ago, people were behind it all the way. They did not want more apartments to the east. But I've also, and Megan brought that up to me on a Facebook post and suggested that maybe I do not earn commissions on what I do over there so that it wouldn't be a conflict. And I agreed to do that. So any commissions that I actually earn or get paid during the term of mayor, I'm going to contribute to my nonprofit foundation that I'm starting to help mentor young people. I believe there's a need there. So I wanted to contribute that to there. I kind of said that before I asked my wife, but she told me it's okay. And then I would also, of course, recuse from any specific votes on the mall.
Okay. Mr. Lopez, what about you? A couple of policy differences where you believe differ from your opponents.
Yeah, so when I was making the decision and determination of not running for city council and I chose to run for mayor, I felt that I could not stand by any talk or rhetoric about consolidating our local police and fire department with Seminole County. While the Seminole County Fire and Police Department is two amazing departments and they do great work in our county. I believe a majority of the residents of the city of Oviedo would like to see a hometown police and fire department, folks that know the community. Another issue of concern is development. As Kevin rightfully said, the residents of Oviedo have heard a lot of promises. Many folks have made commitments. I think it's an asset, not a liability, that I'm the only one running for a mayor of the city of Oviedo who is not a developer. I'm the only one running for a mayor of the city of Oviedo who happens not to be a realtor. Nothing against realtors, nothing against developers. We need folks to invest in the city of Oviedo. We need realtors who serve as some of the greatest ambassadors of our city, selling our city. But I think that the concerns that you discussed earlier are poignant concerns that are shared by a majority of the residents of the city of Oviedo. The fact of the matter is we can't have a mayor who will be perceived. And I take Kevin at his word. Kevin's a good guy. He's an honest guy, and I do respect his transparency. I mean, his ideas about the mall, his ideas about where development should be in the city, they're praiseworthy that he's really forthcoming about it. So I respect them for that. The concern is, and these are concerns that I'm hearing from other businesses, other developers, other realtors, is that they feel like they're going up against the mayor or the would-be mayor, and that's a legitimate concern. Another, yeah.
Oh, are you finished?
No, so I was going to say another concern is the constant talk about preserving spaces, green spaces in the city of Oviedo. Like I told you, I left New Jersey and I came to the city of Oviedo looking for a certain kind of quality of life, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to start a open space preservation fund in the city of Oviedo. I think there's a lot of ideas. Madam Mayor has spoken about a lot of wonderful ideas. The issue in the city of Oviedo presently in town hall is not a shortage of ideas, a shortage of vision. It's the leadership to get it done, the leadership to work constructively with city council to move a singular agenda forward for the people of Oviedo.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. You mentioned, well, the question was about differences in policy, and then the first thing you mentioned was consolidation of police and fire with the Seminole County departments. Are you saying that your opponents support that?
So Mayor Sladek had spoken at numerous occasions, and I personally witnessed it at one of last year's budget cycles, about the fact of the matter that the city of Oviedo does not collect sufficient revenues via millage to fully fund our police and fire departments. And one of the suggestions or ideas that she had touted was the notion of consolidating our police and fire department with Seminole County. This has been talked about at length in the city of Oviedo, and I just disagree with Madam Mayor. Since then, I think her position has evolved, and she has a right to change her position. But I just want to make it clear for every resident of the city of Oviedo, I stand and fully support our police and our fire department. I think they do an amazing job. They should be fully supported. And it's time to have a leader in City Hall that is going to tackle the problem of fully funding our police and fire department.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Sladek, what are a couple of policy differences that you have with your opponents?
Well, first, I do need to say that we have always fully funded our police and fire, and the firefighters, the firefighter union is endorsing me because they are fully funded and because we run it at less expense than if we were to convert the amount we pay to millage and try to compare apples to apples with switching to the county versus here. At this time, and at the last budget session, when we did the metric, I have no interest in outsourcing police or fire. So I do not know why Mr. Lopez continues to say these things. But things that distinguish me, it is how we get from point A to point B. We're redoing our comprehensive plan right now. And as part of this analysis, we discovered that the right to build an additional 4,100 residential units already exists. We can't take it away. As you guys know, the Florida Constitution would require us to compensate in some way between Burt Harris and the Constitution. We'd have to compensate for taking away those rights. So where are we going to put them? The choices are to continue building as we have, which is essentially, people always want whatever we've got, which is single family. So if we do 4,100 units of single family style and we add in the roads, we will have to clear cut 1,300 acres of land to accommodate this. So I would rather do what's right by the environment and have that difficult discussion of, well, if we're not going to clear cut 1,300 acres of land, because that essentially is what's required to meet the regulations for St. John's Water Management District and all the regulatory agencies that require complete engineering of where the water flows. So the choice is clear cut everything or go vertical. So I said back in 2019, I continue to say now, I think we have to look at what going vertical would look like for us. So we went ahead and invested in a ladder truck. We voted to acquire a tower truck so we could begin to go vertical and maintain public safety at the same time. So public safety, I guess, differentiates in the growth.
Okay, we're talking about going vertical. Are you saying that, I'm not sure I understood what you meant. Are you saying that those entitlements that developers already have should somehow be required to build higher? Or I'm not sure what you're getting at there.
That's the only approach that doesn't involve completely eradicating every tree in Oviedo. We are allowed to say, I'm an attorney by training, and a member of the Florida Bar. So you can't say, well, you can't build those because we don't want to clear trees. But we can say, you've got your 10 acres, it's zoned 4 per acre. So instead of doing 40 homes by clear cutting it all and doing the standard retention pond and little houses, look, you can have that density can go up. Or we may even be able to give a little bit of bonus density. And this is helpful for a couple of reasons. One is the road that the city has to maintain shrinks substantially, because if you run water and road to the edge of an apartment complex or condos, it could be fee simple apartments that are owned and owner occupied. If you run the water and road right to the edge of this, all of the infrastructure on the inside of that building is paid for with private funds. If we do traditional, we're running water lines all down all the roads, paving all of this road, and we can just eliminate a whole lot of infrastructure and recurring costs to maintain that infrastructure.
Okay.
On that note, can I get a word in about development and about going up?
Well, we're gonna. I have a question actually about growth that I wanted to ask each of you, and I'll start with you, Mr. Lopez, if you want to add that point to it. But I specifically wanted to ask, one of the key issues in Seminole County over the past few years has been the rural zone and attempts to build inside of that rural zone. And one of the players in this has been Oviedo, because one of the developments, the development, River Cross, apparently had ideas of annexing into Oviedo and then maybe somehow being able to do what they wanted by getting their development before the Oviedo City Council. So my question, it's a complicated issue, but my question is specifically, what is your position on the rural boundary? And do you think that landowners inside that boundary should be able to annex into Oviedo and develop that way? Mr. Lopez, you start, please.
Yes, so we have strict laws, right, that we must follow when it comes to annexing property into the city of Oviedo. So just because a landowner says, I believe this land that I bought should be annexed because the county is not giving me the right to develop my land, it just doesn't work that way. I respect the rural boundary. This was a citizen-led initiative where tons of folks that were truly concerned about the development in their communities united, and they made their voices heard via ballot referendum. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the letter of the law, and it needs to be respected. Now, on the other side of that coin, we need to discuss, while we're focusing attention on preserving the land and the rural boundary, that leaves all of the development to provide the housing that Mayor Sladek had mentioned earlier. All of the density, the added density, it brings that pressure to the city of Oviedo. Right now, if you were to look at the county's map, the city of Oviedo is listed as urban. And I think many Ovedans that are watching this session or will read a transcript of it will be shocked to learn that the entire city is considered now urban. And many folks came here intentionally looking for a suburban lifestyle with possibly 3 rural corridors, which is one Oviedo on the Park, the other is the mall, and the other is uptown or historic Oviedo. So look, we have an issue of trust right now in the city of Oviedo, where Ovedans do not trust their elected officials. And the mayor, she cites that she doesn't want to increase density, but then, the next post will say we need to increase density. The mayor has talked about not building any new units in the city of Oviedo during her time in office, but she went and created an LLC and quietly and very secretly sold 14, 15 acres of land to a developer. With the sole intention of developing and increasing density in the backyards of her neighbors. And again, I'm not against her right as a property owner to develop the land as she sees fit and her family as they see fit. It's their right. And I do not accept the notion that you cannot respect and protect people's right under the Florida Constitution to develop their land, while also addressing the many concerns Ovidans have with regards to development. So that's why on my website, apeformayor.com, I've introduced a plan that's called community-focused development. And the community-focused development makes owners, makes neighbors, the co-signers, the co-authors of the future of the land development around their communities.
I just wanted to follow up with one clarification. I think I heard you, but I don't never like to make presumptions. You said that you are, do I understand you to say you are in no way in favor of annexing Rivercross or any part of the proposed Rivercross?
No, I mean, it would be unethical because the people have spoken. I believe that there's no way around that. The people have made their voices loud and clearly heard. We've heard them loudly and clearly at the county level. We've heard them in the city of Oviedo. And I'm not into this to play games with people. I believe that people should be participants in the future of their land use, especially the property that's surrounding the house. I am inviting residents. I'm inviting Ovidans that are watching this video and this interview to become a part of the development process. These decisions should not be made at the town level. They should be made with neighbors.
Okay, but I have one other follow-up. Well, one of the people who's working on your campaign, Jesse Phillips, he was part of the effort to swap the land out of the rural zone and into a with another piece that is publicly owned that was not in the rural zone. So how much influence does he have on your thinking? I mean, why do you have someone on your campaign who wanted to do that?
Well, Jesse is a campaign manager, and I've had a conversation with him about his ideas with regards to the rural boundary and developing within the rural boundary. And he disputes a lot of the claims that have been made against him. So you'd have to speak with Jesse, but I've received word from Jesse that a lot of what has been written or said about him is just a distraction to try to soil my campaign. And I understand why folks do it, but just because you read it on social media doesn't make it true.
Okay, Ms. Sladek, would you like to talk about the rural boundary, please, and what you think should or should not happen with it?
My position on that has been consistent since 2004. I actually helped campaign to get it there in the first place. I was only probably 22 at the time when it was going on, but did the best I could. I ran an online newspaper, so I spouted off a lot there. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to say. If we do not give sewer to River Cross, it would be extremely difficult for it to develop there. So I do not see how it could potentially succeed without Oviedo's cooperation. You can't just pop a new sewer line across the econ. So they'd have to either get the county to figure out how to cooperate and pop it across, or they would have to tie into Live Oak and cross the existing sewage crossage spot there.
Could you respond to what Mr. Lopez said about a land sale?
My mother died about 2 months before the 2019 election. I have 3 sisters, one who lives in England, one who lives in Colorado, and a third who lives outside city limits. We were unable to cover the taxes and keep the house as a forest preserve, but it has, I don't know if you guys saw me holding up a little map. Since 1981, it has been zoned as low density residential. And a subdivision is now going in there that exactly matches all of the surrounding communities.
But you see, that's the exact hypocrisy that residents in the city of Oviedo are tired of.
The editorial board ask their questions.
Megan ran on a platform of not creating.
Let me stop you because, as I said, we don't run these as a debate. We run them as Q&As. So we're not going to make it look like a presidential debate.
Thank you. Equal time.
Yeah. Mr. Hypes, I'd like you to answer a question about the rural boundary.
Sure. Rural boundary, I'm of course very firm on it. I like it. One of my top platform points is clean water and the environment and also wildlife. And of course, that's consistent with my thinking on urban development, to develop an urban core and allow the apartments to go up instead of the housing to go out. and allow mixed use to come in so they complement each other. So you have eat, sleep, work, play all in the same area, take traffic off the roads. I'll make one point on that in some direction, is that one of the main differences between me and the other folks, I believe, is my knowledge of development. I know that comes across like a negative to folks, but my knowledge and my leadership skills, having been an entrepreneur for many years. For example, the mall was for sale 10, 12 years ago. A fellow bought it. That mall could have been purchased for $7.8 million. That's what it was purchased for. If I was the mayor then or on the council then, I would have proposed the city buy the mall. $7.8 million. Instead, they ignored their mall. And I don't mean to second guess the folks back then, but they gave the developer who put up all the apartments on the park, from what I understand, discounts and impact fees and infrastructure of close to $12 million. They could have bought the mall. They could have moved City Hall, the fire, and the police there and developed a wonderful community of mixed use right there and put no traffic on the road. Now, it's not as easy as that, but that's the way a development-minded person thinks. When I sit down with developers, all of that experience and all of that knowledge and all of those negotiating skills are there. And I think that has value for my community.
Mike, I'll jump in with a general question, if that's all right. I believe that the race in Oviedo is nonpartisan, as many local races are, but I know that's also hard to separate, especially for some people. I had seen a post from the Republican National Hispanic Assembly of Florida, which I believe, Mr. Lopez, you are a member or local leader of, that encourage residents to only support a strong Republican who supports an America First agenda and opposes things like Black Lives Matter. I guess that opened up a bigger question of what kind of role do you believe partisan politics fit into these local races? And maybe Mr. Lopez, we can start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and the other side of that coin, I've also seen posts from the Seminole County Democrats endorsing the incumbent mayor. I've seen countless posts as well that I think, in my humble opinion, take far too much of an aggressive partisan tone. Look, unfortunately, our politics have become so tribalistic. There are folks, that believe I am unqualified to be mayor. I'm unqualified to be a teacher. I'm unqualified to live in the city of Oviedo based on who I voted for president. And that's radical to me. That's scary. So look, when I was a deputy mayor and councilman in New Jersey, I publicly advocated for nonpartisan elections in a state that openly holds partisan and hyper partisan elections. I stand by that now. I believe our local politics should be nonpartisan. I believe that people should always put people over politics. I believe that we should serve all constituents unconditionally. When I'm elected mayor on November 2nd, I plan to serve every resident who's a registered Democrat, an independent, an unaffiliate, Green Party, Libertarian, or Republican. Because at the end of the day, what people want to know in the local level is who is going to ensure that my interests are being served at town hall? Who is going to ensure that developers aren't having their way? Again, I'm the only candidate who's not a developer. I'm the only candidate who's not a realtor. I'm the only candidate who fellow developers or realtors, right, are coming to me saying that they're concerned. They have a genuine concern that they feel that they're competing against elected officials for business in the city of Oviedo. And that's really disconcerting. So just to answer the heart of your question, I do believe both parties have a right to vet candidates. I believe both parties have a right to encourage their members to be civically engaged in the elections. I've availed myself to the Seminole County Democratic Party. If they wanted to host a forum or a debate, I'd be there, name the time, name the place. I've availed myself with any civic or organization in the community. And I know we're going to do, I think, 2 more. We have the Hobnob in the city of Oviedo, hosted by the Oviedo Winter Springs Chamber of Commerce. We have the Twin Rivers Housing Association.
Okay.
There's been other organizations that are interested in doing it, but unfortunately, I can't get folks to debate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hypes, what are your thoughts on partisan politics and the role they play in the local elections?
I think we should leave the local elections local. I don't like when partisan politics gets involved. I really think these folks know what they want in this town. I think they want to elect good, honest folks who've lived here for a while, who understand the situation, who think like they do. As far as I'm concerned, I'll debate anybody, anytime, any place. And I actually participated in a discussion with Abe last night on the Republican platform. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't like that to make the focus. The focus for me is the people. Listen, yeah, I'm a broker and I know development. I do not own one piece of land in this town other than the house that I live in. I'm giving any commission I make on the mall to a nonprofit. I'm doing that on purpose because I believe my ideas make sense. I'm actually starting new programs. I have a contract with the people of Oviedo that I've drafted. I meant to send it to you guys. I didn't get around to it, not if you saw it, because I'm interested in balance. I'm interested in not just critical city issues, which are very important, but also initiatives, ways to save money, ways to create new streams of income, community programs. I've got a lot of community programs that are very close to my heart. I've met 300 to 400 people as I've walked around town. Not everybody's making 100 grand a year in Oviedo. So I've got some programs about mentoring to help people get to that next level. This is stuff that I do. I'm an elder at my church. I'm a Christian guy. I put people first. I need money to pay the bills, but money's not a big deal to me. At the end of the day, I want to do what's best for the community. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an out-of-the-box thinker, and I've got more energy than anybody here, and I will get it done. I'm a decision maker and I'm a leader.
Okay.
Well, I know I got off track there, I'm sorry, but I felt like I had to say what I had to say before we run out of time.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Sladek.
Can't tell you the number of times I've knocked on someone's door, we'll have a conversation, they'll say, you know, I don't even know if you're a Republican or a Democrat. And I like that it happens so often. As for Mr. Lopez seeming to think that I'm endorsed by the Democrats, I'm not aware of that. So I don't know where he's getting that from. I've never seen it.
I have a screenshot.
I don't. and I don't know what to say other than I haven't seen that or heard of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez, I did want to ask you, I mean, I appreciate your answer about partisanship in politics. And you mentioned that some people don't think you're qualified because of who you voted for, but it was more than just a vote. I mean, you were part, it seemed like, of this Stop the Steal movement. You seem to believe the presidential election was stolen. Do you think the presidential election was stolen? Yes or no?
I have serious concerns about the way the elections were conducted. And I have serious concerns about the courts of our country refusing to give a thorough vetting of what took place. And
But the courts did.
It's not like, no, well, many courts refuse to listen, right? Many courts refuse to listen to the evidence.
Sometimes that was because the plaintiffs didn't have standing.
So I'm going to answer your question. You know, this isn't some conspiracy theory, right? That there were some irregularities, and quite frankly, many irregularities that happened, many laws that were changed unconstitutionally in many battleground states. But I'm not looking to relitigate what happened in the past. What I'm saying is that there are over 80 million Americans that had substantial concerns about what took place in 2020, and me being one of them. That does not disqualify me. If anything, that means that I'm going to ensure that we follow the letters of the law in the city of Oviedo. I'm going to ensure that we follow the letters of the law according to Florida state constitution and our United States Constitution. If I wanted to run for issues of federal significance, I would have ran for Congress. I would have ran for some other office, but I'm seeking to serve my neighbors as the mayor of Oviedo because there are many issues.
What makes you think that 80 million people have concerns about the election?
Look, we're not going to relitigate the 2020 elections. This conversation is supposed to be about the city of Oviedo and the issues most important to the residents of the city of Oviedo. And I'll tell you this: the issues that are of great concern to the residents of the city of Oviedo is double talk on name an issue, right? Whether it's we're going to preserve open space and then I'm going to cut 230 trees in your backyard. Whether it's we're not going to raise your taxes and we're celebrating a flat millage rate while paying down over, I think Megan said today or yesterday, last night, 55% of our debt, our bonded debt was reduced, yet millage was increased on the general operating budget. So residents are still not seeing any kind of tax savings. I mean, these are the kitchen table issues Ovedans are concerned about when it comes to whoever's going to serve as their mayor. And I have a great understanding of these issues. I've got a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in executive leadership from Liberty University. I've served as a deputy mayor, a councilman. I've served as a deputy chief of staff to a governor for civic engagement, working with all kinds of folks. There's a reason why, if you were to go donation by donation, you'll see that I'm supported by Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliates. I'm supported by the most diverse coalition that's ever been put together in the city of Oviedo. And the reason that is, it's because residents in Oviedo know that I know how to put people over politics, and I don't traffic in the politics of division that we've seen for the last 2 years in the city of Oviedo. I embrace the politics of inclusion, and that's what I'm going to do as mayor of the city of Oviedo.
Okay. I had another question I wanted to ask you all that has to do with who's funding your campaigns. Mr. Hypes, maybe you could start. Who's putting the money behind your campaign?
The majority of the funds that I've raised have come from folks that are close friends and family who've known me for many years. Being in the real estate business for 35 years, you develop a lot of close relationships. I'd say almost all of these folks live outside the city. They have no interest in the city, but many of them stroked big checks. The biggest that I asked for, because they believe in me as a person and they know my heart and they know I want to do the right thing. Good example is my sister Laura. She lives up in Long Island. I called her up and I said, Laura, you're going to write me a check for $1,000. I'm running for mayor. And she said, what if I don't want to? I said, you have to. You're my sister. So she laughed and she wrote the check. So I realized that there's concerns about where money comes from, but I don't think you can bribe somebody for $1,000. I think my heart's right. I raised as much money as I could because I believe I'm the right guy for the job. But nobody that gave me money, or very, very few, or even from this immediate area. It's different than the other candidates, but that's the truth.
Okay. Ms. Sladek, how about you? Who's putting money into your campaign?
Local Oviedo city residents did an analysis of where everybody's money was coming from, and 80% of mine is from city of Oviedo residents. If you do Oviedo, unincorporated Oviedo, Chiliota, Geneva, Winter Springs, the immediately adjacent cities, it goes to about probably 92% from just regular people who are here local. My average donation size is, I want to say it was $68 across that whole group of people.
Okay. And how about you, Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, look, after Mayor Sladek, I think I'm second runner-up as far as receiving local donations from residents of Oviedo and folks that are nearby, whether it's Geneva or Chiliota, or folks that are in unincorporated Oviedo who are also concerned about the density issues of traffic that affects these nearby communities. The rest of my donations come from friends, family members, former colleagues that I work with at numerous jobs. If you look at my campaign finance reports, you won't see developers. You won't see folks that have a financial land or commercial interest in the city of Oviedo. You just won't see that. You're going to see a diverse group of people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, that believe in what I can do and believe in my ability to get things done as an elected official, and one who recognizes that the office is about service. I'm not running as a politician. Quite frankly, I take offense to the word. I consider myself a public servant. The people are driving this, and I'm honored that in the midst of a pandemic, many of folks who have fallen in tough times financially have invested, whether it's $5, $25, $100, or the maximum $1,000. And I'd like to thank them for standing with me and for believing in me and believing in the promise that is the city of Oviedo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you all agree that development is the biggest issue facing Oviedo right now?
Yes.
Well, development as a result of traffic. So I think people wouldn't mind development if there was a way to do so without having traffic. And there's some creativity needed there.
And I'd echo the mayor's words with that, right? Traffic, especially along Mitchell Hammock, is a major concern. And if we study the genesis of this issue, right, you see some of our previous elected officials, they thought that cementing a two-lane road and building around it would kind of prevent development along Mitchell Hammock Road. And it's done the opposite. We've grown Mitchell Hammock Road, And now we've grown it so much that there's really little leverage on how to develop or increase traffic along Mitchell Hammock Road. So that's going to force us to get creative, but there's ongoing projects both at the county and the state.
Creative idea, Abe. What's your creative idea to help on this?
So as you know, Madam Mayor, and Kevin know, we've all spoken with the county commissioners. We've all spoken with our state representatives. There are projects that are on the pipeline, both at the federal level and also at the state level and at the county level. The issue that we're having right now is that Oviedo's never the center of attention in anyone's minds. And you know the saying.
Would you like to hear my creative idea, Mr. Lopez?
So we're going to debate. Are we going to debate? We're ready to
I
debate.
think we can move on to Mr. Hypes, and you can give us the response there.
Thank you.
Why don't we do this? Excuse me. Why don't we do this in the form of one last question, which is, if
Wait, I don't
traffic-
think Mr. Hypes got a chance to answer your question about development.
I'll just very quickly answer because I know we're running out of time. I have some very specific ideas in my contract with the people of Oviedo on handle traffic seems to be the big issue because of development, but we also need jobs. We also need income to come in to do a lot of things. I have a very specific plan. I think we should negotiate a JPA with the county. Bob Delari is a good friend of mine. He's a guru on traffic. He's shared some of his ideas to create 3 different traffic corridors, fund them. And I don't think we should do that before we do any more development on Mitchell
Okay, well,
Hammock.
that was going to be my final question. What is the answer to the traffic problems, and what is that? Mr. Hypes, will start with you. What is the
Sure.
what are these corridors that you're talking about?
Okay, so right now the future land use plan is proposing putting in 3 areas for dense development. And when I say dense, I mean 50 units an acre. The mall is one, and that makes a lot of sense. The old downtown, okay, intensity there would look nice, and the 60 acres on Mitchell Hammock across from on the park. I do not think that should be in the future land use plan. You put 50 units an acre there on top of the traffic we already have, and that's a disaster. It's just common sense. The way to solve it is to not put that in there, put it on hold, let the development go further down by the mall, and fix the road. You don't want to widen Mitchell Hammock. If you widen it, you're just going to bring more traffic to it. Plus, it's very expensive to widen Mitchell Hammock because you got a lot of muck on both sides of that road. Third, you don't want to widen it because that's a road owned by the city of Oviedo. That means the total cost of widening that road comes out of the city residents' pockets, even though a lot of Seminole County folks drive through there. What you want to do is spread the traffic out. 419, which has already got the first leg done and the second leg financed. We need to finance the third leg so folks on 419 can go straight in from the city to 417. You also want to develop Slavia, which is another route. Slavia is going to be made in such a way that we can also put traffic there. You spread that traffic out, you develop those corridors, and you get that traffic rolling in such a nice way before you do any more development downtown. A JPA is necessary with the county because they're going to fund most of that. If we handle ourselves the right way and we negotiate correctly with the county, we'll get them to pay for most of this.
And Sladek, what do you think are the answers to Oviedo's traffic problems?
Well, on the Slavia thing, I think it's important to note that the county does not yet own the right of way. DUDA has been approached about purchasing it, but doesn't own it yet. It would be an additional thing to hop down there. Metro Plan also says that Mitchell Hammock cannot be widened effectively. The good news or bad news is that 19% of car-based trips in Oviedo are 2 miles or less. So what we're doing right now is a mobility study to find out what it would take to entice people with alternatives to riding in a car for those 2 mile and less trips. If we can eliminate 19% of the traffic by enticing people to voluntarily choose other methods, I mean, this is like, this is a 10 to 20 year plan to address it. But there is value in being a grown up in the room and saying, look, we can't fix Mitchell Hammock. Let's move on to a solution. But I'm on the same page as Kevin. I wish either of my opponents would have helped me as I was fighting the attempt to develop that 40 acres there on Mitchell Hammock 2 years ago. It would have been great to have them at the table, but I was one of the people leading the charge to keep that from happening. The city of Oviedo has a lease through 2034 to rent that land, the whole 60-acre parcel. 20 of it is already zoned to comp plan to be like Oviedo on the Park. The other 40 acres is nearly 35 homes. So I've told staff, please don't make me bring the entire city here to tell you no on changing the comp plan.
Okay. Finally, Mr. Lopez, what are your ideas about solving traffic problems in Oviedo?
Yes, some of the ideas I have, and both candidates hinted to it, is that we need to limit the congestion at Mitchell Hammock, right? We can't continue to flood that area with extra development when our infrastructure, as is right now, just cannot sustain it. And that's why I kind of find it shocking that the mayor says, you know, she's been the lead of that fight. She voted to increase development there by 252 additional apartments with 1 or 2 cars per apartment. That's coming. We see it. Shovels already on the ground in that project. She also has this idea of traffic calming solutions on Mitchell Hammock Drive, one of our city's busiest roads. I mean, she's talked about trying to find a way to introduce biking there, which is borderline impossible with the current infrastructure there. And I think there's been talk about golf carts and so on. So these are some of the ideas that are just not practical, that are nonsensical. Well, and you know, in one part she says that we need to alleviate the density, alleviate the development in that area, and then you want to introduce some solutions that are just non-realistic for everyday Ovidans. The other idea of trying to get residents to travel via bicycle to work or through public transportation, that's non-existing in the city of Oviedo.
Find out what your ideas are, not what you think of someone else's.
So the idea is to alleviate the congestion there. Number one, we need to seriously consider taking a pause of development in and around Mitchell Hammock and Oviedo on the Park. We also need to work with our county and state and federal partners to get projects that have been decades in the work to fruition. I mean, we at the old historic part of downtown Oviedo, we knocked out buildings. Businesses were shuttered because they were told that certain projects were going to get done 10, 15, 20 years later. Those projects are not done. Those projects haven't even started. So we need a leader in the city of Oviedo who's going to work with our county and federal counterparts and our state counterparts to ensure that Oviedo is in their sights and in their minds. Out of sight, you're out of mind. Oviedo, unfortunately, right now it's not on the radar. So what we're going to do is kick off those projects. We need to ensure that the road widenings at the county roads happen. We need to ensure that the deals between the state and the private landowners take place as well, so that we can alleviate congestion along the Hammock.
Thank you all for your time. We are out of time. I appreciate it very much and want to wish you all the best of luck. Thanks.